The hospital room was painfully quiet. Not the peaceful kind of silence, but the heavy one that presses against your chest. A heart monitor beeped slowly. Dim lights reflected off white walls. Outside the window, the city kept moving, unaware of what was happening inside this small room. Keanu Reeves lay on the hospital bed, eyes half open, staring at the ceiling. The man the world saw as strong, calm, unbreakable, was fighting something no one else could see. No cameras were allowed. No reporters. No fans. Doctors had just stepped out, whispering words like critical, observation, and uncertain. For the first time in years, Keanu was alone with his thoughts. Memories flooded in, loss, heartbreak, people he loved who never made it this far. He clenched his fist, then slowly relaxed it as if even strength felt heavy tonight. Then the door creaked open. Keanu didn't turn his head. He assumed it was a nurse. But the footsteps were familiar. Slow. Careful. Respectful. A chair scraped gently across the floor and stopped beside his bed. Still no words. Keanu finally turned his head. And froze. It was his best friend. Not a celebrity. Not someone the internet talks about. Not someone who shows up for photos. This was the one person who had been there before fame. Before money. Before the world decided who Keanu Reeves was supposed to be. His throat tightened. "You didn't have to come," Keanu whispered, his voice weak. His friend looked at him quietly and replied, "I know." Then he sat down. No speeches. No dramatic lines. Just presence. Keanu swallowed hard. His eyes filled and he turned his face away, embarrassed to be seen like this, vulnerable, tired, human. Outside the room, a nurse stopped walking. Something about the moment made her pause. The friend reached forward and gently placed his hand on the edge of the bed, not grabbing, not forcing, just reminding him he wasn't alone. "You've spent your whole life showing up for others," he said softly. "Tonight, let me show up for you." Keanu's breathing shook. And then his friend did something completely unexpected. Something that would change the atmosphere of the room. Something that would turn silent pain into something deeper. Something unforgettable. What happened next didn't make headlines. It didn't trend online. But everyone who witnessed it would remember it for the rest of their lives. The chair beside Keanu's bed felt colder than it looked. His best friend sat there quietly, hands folded, eyes fixed not on the machines or the blinking monitor, but on Keanu himself. As if he were memorizing the moment. As if he knew this night mattered. The hospital room smelled faintly of antiseptic and old coffee. Outside, distant sirens echoed through the city. Inside, time slowed to a crawl. Keanu broke the silence first. "I hate hospitals," he murmured. "They remind me of everything I couldn't save." His friend didn't rush to answer. He'd learned long ago that Keanu needed space, not solutions. "You saved more than you know," he finally said. Keanu exhaled, a tired sound. People see movies. They see money. They don't see the nights after. He turned his head slightly, staring at the 4-line taped to his arm. "There are moments," Keanu continued, "when the world gets loud, and I feel invisible at the same time." His friend nodded. He had heard versions of this before. In quiet diners at 2 a.m., on park benches after premieres, in cars parked far from flashing lights. Fame had never protected Keanu from pain. If anything, it had wrapped it in silence. The friend reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something small. An old metro ticket, creased and faded. "You remember this?" he asked. Keanu squinted, then smiled faintly. "That night," his friend said. "You missed the last train. We walked home for hours." Keanu chuckled softly, then winced as the sound strained him. "I had $5, he said. "And you pretended you weren't hungry." They shared a quiet laugh, the kind that hurts and heals at the same time. Those were the years before red carpets. Before luxury homes. Before people knew his name. Back then, Keanu would sit with strangers and listen to their stories. He would give away his last bit of cash and walk home without complaint. He believed life was about being decent, not being noticed. The friend looked around the room. "Funny," he said. "You never changed. The world just got louder." Keanu's eyes grew distant. "I tried to carry everyone," he whispered. "And I forgot what it felt like to be carried." For a moment, neither spoke. Then the friend stood up and walked toward the window. He pulled the curtain back slightly, letting city lights spill into the room. "You know why I came tonight?" he asked. Keanu shook his head. "Because this place," the friend said, turning back, "is full of machines keeping bodies alive, but not enough people keeping souls alive." He reached into his bag and placed it gently on the small table. Inside were letters. Handwritten. folded carefully. Dozens of them. Keanu's brow furrowed. "What's that?" he asked. His friend smiled, but his eyes were heavy. "People you helped," he said. "People you thought forgot." Keanu tried to sit up, suddenly alert. "That's not." "Yes," his friend interrupted softly. "It is." Nurses passed outside the door, unaware that something important was unfolding. "These letters came from places you'll never visit again," the friend continued. "From lives you touched without cameras. Without applause." Keanu's hands trembled as he reached toward the table. "I didn't do it for thanks," he said quietly. "I know," his friend replied. "That's why this matters." He placed one letter in Keanu's hand but didn't let him open it yet. "Not now," he said. "First, you need to remember who you are, not who the world made you." Keanu closed his eyes, holding the letter to his chest. For the first time that night, the heart monitor steadied. And for the first time in a long time, Keanu Reeves didn't feel alone. Keanu stared at the letter in his hand as if it weighed more than his entire career. The paper was thin, ordinary, but his fingers trembled like he was holding something fragile, something alive. "I can't," he said quietly. His best friend didn't argue. He simply pulled the chair closer again and sat down. "You don't have to read it," he said. "You just have to listen." Keanu's breathing grew uneven. The steady beep of the heart monitor seemed louder now, as if it were counting seconds instead of heartbeats. "I've spent my life moving forward," Keanu said, his voice strained. "If I stop, everything catches up." His friend nodded slowly. "That's what this room is," he replied. "A place where nothing chases you. Everything waits." Keanu closed his eyes. Images surfaced, moments he had buried deep. Standing alone at graves. Hospital corridors that smelled just like this one. Phone calls that changed everything in a single sentence. "I survived things I wasn't supposed to," Keanu whispered. "And sometimes, I don't know why." Silence filled the space between them. Then his friend reached into the bag again and pulled out a small device. A phone. Keanu frowned. "No press," he said instinctively. "There's no camera," his friend replied. "Only voices." He tapped the screen. A soft, unfamiliar voice filled the room. "Mr. Reeves, you don't know me, but you sat with my son on a subway bench when he was scared. You missed your stop. You stayed anyway." Keanu's lips parted slightly. Another voice followed. "You paid for my surgery and disappeared before I could thank you. I only found out years later." The voices continued, not dramatic, not polished. Just real. Cracking. Grateful. Keanu's chest tightened. "Stop," he whispered. But his friend gently shook his head. "Not yet." A nurse stood frozen outside the door, hand on the handle. She didn't enter. She listened. "You think you're defined by loss," the friend said softly over the voices. "But loss doesn't erase what you gave." Keanu's face crumpled. Tears slid down into his hair. "I didn't save them all," he said, barely audible. "No one does," his friend replied. "But you showed up. And that matters." The phone went silent. The room felt heavier, like everything unsaid had finally arrived at once. Keanu tried to push the letter back onto the table. "I can't carry this," he said. "It hurts." His friend leaned forward. "It hurts because it's real," he said. "And because you've been strong alone for too long." Keanu's hands clenched into the sheets. "I don't want to be remembered," he said suddenly. "I just want peace." The words surprised even him. His friend didn't answer right away. Then he stood, walked to the door and quietly locked it. Keanu's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" "Protecting this moment," he replied calmly. He returned and knelt beside the bed so they were eye level. "You don't get peace by disappearing," he said. "You get it by letting yourself be seen." Keanu's breathing shook violently now. The machines beeped faster. A doctor's voice echoed faintly down the hall. His friend placed one hand gently over Keanu's heart, not pressing, not forcing. "Stay," he whispered. "Stay with me." Keanu gasped, not in pain but in release. The letter slipped from his hand onto the bed. And as the monitor slowly began to calm again, one truth became impossible to ignore. The fight wasn't happening in Keanu's body anymore. It was happening in his soul. The hallway outside the hospital room felt different now. Nurses who had rushed through it all night suddenly slowed their steps. A doctor paused mid-sentence while reading a chart. No one could explain it, but something inside that room had shifted, like the air itself had grown heavier, warmer, more human. Inside, Keanu lay still, his chest rising and falling unevenly. His eyes were closed, but his brow was tense, as if he were standing on the edge of something deep. His best friend remained beside him, one hand resting lightly on the bed rail, the other still close to Keanu's heart, not touching now, just there. Available. The heart monitor steadied. Beep, beep, beep. A nurse finally entered, careful not to disturb the silence. She checked the 4, glanced at the screen, then froze. That's better, she whispered almost to herself. Keanu's eyes opened slowly. The first thing he saw was his friend's face, tired, calm, unwavering. You stayed, Keanu said. Of course, his friend replied. There was never anywhere else to be. Keanu swallowed. His voice came out raw. I thought if I stopped moving, everything would fall apart. His friend shook his head gently. No, he said. It's holding everything together that nearly broke you. The nurse pretended to adjust a monitor, but her eyes were wet. She had seen many patients, powerful ones, famous ones, but she had never seen this kind of quiet bravery. Outside the room, word spread without words. Another nurse leaned toward a colleague and whispered, That's him, the actor. The colleague peeked in, then looked away quickly as if embarrassed to witness something so personal. Inside, Keanu reached for the letter again. His fingers hesitated. His friend didn't stop him this time. Keanu unfolded the paper slowly. The handwriting was messy, uneven. You don't remember me. I was just a woman crying on a park bench. You sat next to me. You didn't try to fix me. You just listened. I'm alive because of that. Keanu inhaled sharply. The letter slipped slightly as his grip weakened. His friend caught it before it fell. You see, he said softly. You didn't save her by being famous. You saved her by being present. Keanu closed his eyes. For the first time, he didn't push the tears away. They came freely now, quiet, heavy, honest. No sobbing. No drama. Just release. The nurse cleared her throat gently. Mr. Reeves, she said, hesitant. The doctor will be back soon. Keanu nodded, then looked at his friend. Don't go, he said almost like a question. I won't, his friend answered. I promise. Outside, a doctor finally entered, followed by another nurse. They checked vitals, whispered to each other, confusion crossing their faces. His number stabilized, the doctor said. No medication change. The nurse glanced toward the chair. Sometimes, she said quietly, people need more than medicine. The doctor didn't argue. As they prepared to leave, the doctor turned back. Mr. Reeves, he said gently, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. The door closed again. Silence returned, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was full. Keanu stared at the ceiling once more, but now his expression had changed. I was so afraid of being weak, he said. His friend leaned back. Weakness isn't asking for help, he said. It's pretending you don't need it. Keanu let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding for years. From the hallway, a janitor paused, listening through the door as he wiped the floor. He didn't know who Keanu Reeves was, and in that moment it didn't matter. What mattered was that a man was learning how to stay. Keanu turned his head again. Read me another letter, he said. His friend smiled, not wide, not proud, just grateful. Okay, he said. And as the soft voice filled the room once more, something rare happened in that hospital wing. Time stopped being the enemy. The room felt heavier than ever, yet lighter at the same time. Keanu sat up slightly in the bed, the letter still trembling in his hands. He had read a few lines, but it was enough to break the dam inside him. His chest felt tight, but not from illness. From something far older, far deeper. The weight of years spent giving without expecting anything back. His best friend noticed the shift. Quietly, he pulled another device from his bag, an old, worn tablet. The screen lit up, showing dozens of folders, each labeled with a name. These, his friend said softly, are the people you saved. The lives you touched. The souls you forgot existed. Keanu frowned. I don't understand. How? They never forgot, his friend interrupted. And tonight you get to hear it for yourself. A soft chime echoed through the room, then a voice. Mr. Reeves. I don't even know if you'll remember me. I was just a kid sitting alone in a hospital corridor. You didn't know me, but you stayed. You talked to me for hours, made me laugh. I'm alive today because of that night. Keanu's lips parted. His eyes glistened. I don't remember. Exactly, his friend said. You didn't do it for recognition. That's why this matters. Another voice joined, this one shaky, old, cracking. You paid for my treatment when my parents couldn't. You walked away before I could even say thank you. I never forgot. You didn't save me with fame. You saved me with presence. And tonight, I need you to know that. Keanu's hands shook violently now. The letter fell to the bed. His heart monitor beeped faster, almost in rhythm with his rising pulse. Tears rolled down his cheeks. He whispered, I never did it for them. I know, his friend said. He placed a hand gently on Keanu's shoulder. And that's why it's so powerful. The tablet continued to play messages. Soft, intimate, real. A teacher whose child Keanu had anonymously helped fund through college. A stranger whose funeral he had attended quietly, leaving flowers on a bench. A single mother who had lost everything, whom he had guided back into hope with a simple conversation. The voices layered one after the other, filling the small hospital room. You see, his friend asked. It wasn't the cameras, the awards, or the movies. It was this. These people. These moments. You made a difference every single day, whether you knew it or not. Keanu's body shook with emotion. He had always been careful to shield the world from his grief, his doubts, his weaknesses. But tonight all of that had vanished. The most powerful voice of all came last. Keanu Reeves. I don't know how to thank you. You didn't just save me. You reminded me that kindness exists. And now, I'm alive to pass it on. All because of you. The room was silent again. The beeping of the monitors sounded like a heartbeat, steady, strong, alive. Keanu turned to his friend. I don't know what to say, he whispered. I never thought anyone remembered. His friend smiled, eyes glistening. They did. They always did. And tonight you needed to see it for yourself. Keanu took a deep, shaky breath. I thought I was alone, he said. I thought all the pain, the loss, it was mine to carry. His friend shook his head slowly. You were never alone. Not really. Not when you were giving everything you had, even in silence. That's why it matters now. That's why this moment exists. Keanu sat back, exhausted, overwhelmed, but also lighter than he had felt in years. The tears continued to flow, but they weren't just sadness. They were relief, recognition, and a strange, profound gratitude he couldn't have imagined. Outside the door, a nurse whispered, Is he okay? Her colleague paused. I think he's finally seeing what he's done. Inside, Keanu looked at the letters scattered across the bed, the tablet playing silently now. He took a hand and gripped his friend's arm. Thank you, he said simply, for staying, for showing me all of this. His friend nodded. Always. That's what friends do. Keanu leaned back against the pillows, closing his eyes. For the first time in months, perhaps years, he didn't feel the weight of the world pressing him down. He felt something rare. Peace. Not the kind given by fame or fortune. Not applause or recognition. But the kind that comes from knowing you've mattered. Truly mattered. And that your presence, not your success, changed lives. He opened his eyes and looked at his friend. I can't believe all of them. Believe it, his friend said. And now you can let yourself rest. Just for tonight. Tomorrow the world can wait. Keanu smiled faintly, tears streaking his cheeks, and whispered, Tomorrow, we start fresh. And in that hospital room, the reality became undeniable. A life lived quietly, kindly, and sincerely leaves ripples far stronger than any spotlight. Tonight, Keanu Reeves finally saw the true power of what he had given. The room was quiet now, but it was no longer heavy. The heartbeat of the monitors was steady. The letters lay scattered across the bed, a tangible testament to lives Keanu had touched. And for the first time he allowed himself to just be, to sit, to breathe, and to let the weight of years slide off his shoulders. His best friend stayed beside him, watching carefully. Not hovering. Not trying to direct. Just present. You know, Keanu said finally, his voice low but steady, I spent so long thinking I had to carry everything myself. That asking for help, showing weakness, that was failure. His friend shook his head. No. That's the trap. You thought strength was surviving alone. But real strength? Real strength is letting someone in. Letting yourself feel, letting yourself be seen, letting someone else carry the weight for a moment. Keanu nodded slowly. His eyes glistened, reflecting the soft hospital lights. He took a deep breath, as if inhaling years of pent-up emotion. I think I forgot what that feels like, he admitted. To just exist without performing, without pushing, without fighting all the time. You never forgot, his friend replied. You just didn't allow yourself to remember. Keanu looked down at the letters again. He reached out and picked one up, slowly reading a few lines. Tears fell, but this time there was a sense of release. Not just for himself, but for everyone he had quietly touched. His friend gently placed a hand on the bed, brushing against his arm. See, he said softly. You've done more than you know. And now, It's time to let it settle. Keanu closed his eyes and leaned back. I always thought my work, my movies, my fame, that was my legacy. But I see now, it wasn't the applause that mattered. It was the quiet, unseen moments. The people I never met. The lives I didn't know I touched. That's the part one forgot. His friend smiled quietly. And tonight, you remembered. You finally allowed yourself to see it. For the first time, Keanu laughed softly. A short, unguarded sound, almost a sigh. I didn't expect this, he said. I thought I'd feel exhausted, empty. But instead I feel lighter. Lighter than I have in years. The room felt different. Not because the lights changed or the monitors adjusted. It was a subtle shift. A presence, a feeling of closure, of understanding. The weight of unseen pain had lifted, replaced by recognition, gratitude, and peace. Keanu turned to his friend, a faint smile on his lips. You didn't just stay tonight. You reminded me who I really am. Not the character, not the public persona, me. His friend nodded but didn't speak. Words weren't necessary anymore. The silence between them carried everything. Minutes passed. The sounds of the city outside drifted in, distant, normal. Life continued beyond the hospital walls. And yet inside time had paused. Inside, Keanu had found something rare. Clarity, presence, and the knowledge that his life mattered beyond the cameras and spotlights. He reached for the letter again and held it to his chest. I've spent so long worrying about being enough, about doing enough. But tonight I realize, I already have been enough. Maybe I just needed someone to show me that. His friend smiled softly. We all need that sometimes. No shame in letting someone remind you. Keanu looked around the room one last time, at the tablet, the letters, the faint traces of tears on his cheeks. He realized this night would stay with him forever. Not for the pain but for the lesson. Not for the fear but for the love. I finally understand what it means to be seen, Keanu whispered. And what it means to forgive myself for thinking I wasn't. His friend reached over, gently squeezing his hand. You don't need to earn forgiveness, Keanu. You just need to accept it. From the world, from others, but most importantly from yourself. Keanu nodded, his body relaxing in the bed. He allowed himself to let go. To breathe. To exist in this quiet, peaceful moment without performance or expectation. Outside the room, the night continued. The city lights shimmered, cars passed, and life went on. But inside the hospital room, a transformation had quietly taken place. Keanu Reeves, a man who had spent decades giving, loving, struggling silently, finally received something he hadn't allowed himself to claim. Recognition, peace, and the understanding that his presence mattered far more than his accomplishments. He looked at his friend one last time. Thank you, he said, for staying. For reminding me of everything I forgot. For being here. His friend nodded simply. Always. Keanu leaned back, exhausted, calm, at peace. Tonight had been a reminder. Life's true measure isn't fame, fortune, or applause. It's the quiet moments. The unseen acts of kindness. The presence of someone who refuses to leave your side when everything else does. For the first time in years he smiled, fully, completely, and without hesitation. And he knew, deep in his heart, that he was ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. Because tonight he had been seen. And that was enough. The night had grown quiet outside the hospital windows, but inside, something profound had unfolded. Keanu Reeves lay back on his bed, the letters scattered around him like tiny pieces of a puzzle he had long forgotten existed. His chest rose and fell steadily, his eyes reflecting a new understanding. He had always thought of himself as a solitary figure, someone who carried his burdens alone. Someone who had to be strong always, no matter the cost. But tonight he learned something far more powerful. True strength wasn't in carrying the weight alone. True strength was in allowing yourself to be supported. To be seen. To be reminded that even the smallest acts, a conversation, a smile, a gesture of kindness, could ripple out in ways the world could never measure. His best friend sat quietly beside him, hand resting lightly on the bed rail. Not intrusive, not demanding. Just present. A reminder that presence, not grand gestures, could heal wounds no one else even knew existed. Keanu looked around the room, the letters, the tablet, the evidence of lives quietly changed by his actions. And for the first time he understood, the world's applause was fleeting. But kindness, genuine, unseen, selfless kindness, lasts forever. He picked up one letter and read it silently. You helped me when no one else would. You stayed. You listened. You believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. I'm alive because of you. He pressed it to his chest. For years, he had been haunted by the idea that he hadn't done enough. That he hadn't saved enough, given enough, loved enough. That the world was a ledger of debts he could never repay. But the letters told a different story. A story of gratitude, hope, and the quiet impact of a life lived with compassion. His best friend leaned closer. "Do you see now?" he asked softly. "You spent your life giving and it mattered. Even when you thought no one was watching, you were making a difference." Keanu nodded, tears sliding down his face. "I didn't know. I never knew it mattered this much." "That's the thing," his friend said gently. "You never needed to. That's the beauty of true kindness. It doesn't wait for recognition. It just exists. And tonight, you get to see it." The room was filled with silence again, but it wasn't empty. It was heavy with gratitude, with understanding, with the quiet weight of lives touched. Outside the hospital, the city carried on. Cars honked. Streetlights flickered. Life went on without pause. But inside, Keanu had experienced something far more enduring than any headline, award, or fans' applause. He turned to his friend. "I've always thought fame defined me. That success meant everything. But now, I see. It's not the movies, the roles, or the money. It's the people you impact when no one is watching." His friend smiled, a calm, knowing smile. "Exactly. That's why tonight matters. Not for the world. Not for recognition. But for you. And for the people whose lives you've touched, quietly, endlessly, without expecting anything in return." Keanu nodded again, slowly, the weight in his chest lifting with every breath. "I finally feel like I'm part of something bigger than myself," he admitted. "That's life," his friend said simply. "It's not measured in fame, fortune, or applause. It's measured in connection, in compassion, in moments where your presence matters more than anything you can ever achieve." Keanu smiled faintly, wiped his tears, and looked around the room. "I wish everyone could feel this. To know that even small acts, even quiet moments, make a difference." His friend leaned back, letting him absorb the words, the space, the moment. "They do. But not everyone will see it like you do. That's why it matters that you do. That's why you keep giving, keep showing up, keep being present. Because the world needs people like you, quietly, steadily, faithfully, even when no one notices." Keanu leaned back against his pillows, finally at ease. He thought about all the years of struggle, the loneliness, the pain. He thought about the unseen kindness, the quiet acts of compassion, the people whose lives he had touched without ever knowing. And in that moment he realized something essential. Life is not about being seen by everyone. It's about being felt by the ones who need you most. He turned to his friend, eyes steady, voice calm. "Thank you. For staying. For reminding me of all this. For showing me that presence is the greatest gift anyone can give." His friend nodded, eyes glistening. "Always. That's what friends do. They stay when everyone else leaves." Keanu smiled, a soft, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "I get it now. I see it. I feel it. And tonight, I rest knowing it matters. That I mattered. That kindness mattered." And with that, the room settled into a quiet peace. A rare, enduring peace born from truth, love, and recognition. He glanced once more at the scattered letters, the tablet, the messages, the lives quietly changed. And he understood fully that the most meaningful legacy is not fame, fortune, or accolades. It is the lives we touch when no one is watching, the compassion we give when there is no reward, and the love we offer when it seems unseen. Keanu Reeves closed his eyes, for the first time allowing himself to breathe freely, knowing that his life, his quiet, selfless, remarkable life, had left a mark far greater than any headline could ever capture. And as the night wore on, the lessons lingered. True strength is silent. True courage is compassion. True legacy is presence. If you've ever been touched by someone quietly giving without recognition, type presence in the comments. And tell me, where are you watching from? Share this with someone who reminds you of the quiet power of kindness. Because sometimes the smallest acts, the ones nobody sees, are the ones that matter the most.